identified the first direct molecular evidence of genomic integration of mRNA vaccine genetic material. We looked at a stage 4 bladder cancer patient. And first of all, this patient was a 30-year-old woman where bladder cancers are extremely rare. So she received 3 Moderna mRNA injections and within a year developed this stage 4 highly aggressive bladder cancer. So we decided to do some molecular profiling. We did identify within what's called circulating tumor DNA, we identified an integration event of the DNA plasmid material from the manufacturing process. The portion of the plasmid that integrated is called the ORF region of the spike ORF region, open reading frame region of this plasmid. That's the portion that encodes for the spike protein to churn out this mRNA during manufacturing. So this portion, what's called 20 base pair portion, 20 nucleotide sequence of this plasmid was perfectly matched in chromosome 19 in this circulating tumor DNA. 20 base pair perfect match, which is, there's about a 1 in a trillion chance this was just an anomaly, and it integrated in chromosome 19 in what's called a non-safe harbor region. So sometimes it can integrate into what's called the AAVS1 locus, which is apparently you won't have many consequences. It was not in that safe harbor locus. So it was in a very dangerous, transcriptionally active area. This was accompanied by severe genetic dysfunction. And when I say that, I mean we identified there was many genes that were severely dysregulated that have to do with DNA repair. So her genes related to being able to repair damaged DNA were literally being turned off. And so everything was going haywire molecularly, accompanied by this integration event, accompanied by a stage 4 cancer, a very rare cancer in this age group. So this is very damning, and it's very worrisome, and it should demand the immediate withdrawal of these mRNA products.
We are very blessed to have Nick Hulscher back with us. Nick, I already got you locked in for every Wednesday. Are you still good for that? I'm asking you on air so that you can't say no, or else you'll look like a bad guy.
Yes, I'm all in. I'm all in.
Awesome. All right. So for today, give us a brief. Go ahead and just tell us a brief introduction, just for the audience that probably already knows you from the last time. But tell us who you are.
Yes. My name is Nicholas Hulscher. I am an epidemiologist at the McCullough Foundation, where Dr. Peter McCullough is the president. And since 2023, I've now contributed to the publication of nearly 20 scientific manuscripts now exposing the harms of mRNA technology. And we have uncovered a lot of things. And as each week goes by, unfortunately, the harms become even worse that we are now finding. And so we can talk about that today. But in general, we do that. And we are currently conducting about 5 scientific analyses and studies that are meant for peer review that will be relating to vaccines and autism, cancer, and excess mortality after the mRNA injections.
Nice. You're doing great work. We've been able to follow along, and we'll tell them in the beginning, we'll tell them in the end, so they can find you and contribute by going to McCulloughFND.org. That's McCulloughFND.org. And they can keep up with y'all's writings and various content at thefocalpointsplural.com. So you said crazy developments lately. I think I know what you're going to talk about because I've been following you on X, where everybody should follow you. Nick Hulscher, LU. It's NIC, no K, NIC, HULSCHER. It's one of the best X counts I know, and I've been following it, and you've been dropping bombshells. So you take it away. I'm just going to shut up and be the dumb guy listening.
All right. Well, I would just say that yesterday we officially uploaded our findings onto a preprint server. And these findings are very, very, very worrisome for the majority now of the population that received mRNA products. We have identified the first direct molecular evidence of genomic integration of mRNA vaccine genetic material. And specifically, what we did was we looked at a stage 4 bladder cancer patient. And first of all, this patient was a 30-year-old woman where bladder cancers are extremely rare, extremely rare. So she received 3 Moderna mRNA injections and within a year developed this stage 4 highly aggressive bladder cancer. So we decided to do some molecular profiling, and heading this study, first author is John Catanzaro of Neo7 Bioscience, who ran most of the analysis. We did identify within what's called circulating tumor DNA. So basically, the DNA of this bladder cancers of the tumors within the bladder. We identified an integration event of the DNA plasmid material from the manufacturing process, right? So recently, Kevin McKernan and his team confirmed billions upon billions of DNA plasmids left over in the vials being injected into people, right? So we know these DNA plasmids are in there. Now, in our case, we observed what's the portion of the plasmid that integrated is called the ORF region of the spike ORF region, open reading frame region of this plasmid. That's the portion that encodes for the spike protein to churn out this mRNA during manufacturing. So this portion, what's called 20 base pair portion, 20 nucleotide sequence of this plasmid was perfectly matched in chromosome 19 in this circulating tumor DNA. 20-20 base pair perfect match, which is there's about a 1 in a trillion chance this was just an anomaly. So that was identified there, and it integrated in chromosome 19 in what's called a non-safe harbor region. So sometimes it can integrate into what's called the AAVS1 locus, which is apparently you won't have many consequences. It was not in that safe harbor locus. So it was in a very dangerous, transcriptionally active area that you don't want things to be integrated into. So it was in there, but this was accompanied by severe genetic dysfunction. And when I say that, I mean we identified there was many genes that were severely dysregulated that have to do with DNA repair. So her genes related to being able to repair damaged DNA were literally being turned off. Right. So what that means is she incurred this DNA damage. Her body can't fix it. And when you have these what's called DNA double strand breaks, this foreign genetic material can kind of get into those breaks because the body's not properly healing that. So we identified that, and we also identified many other genes were dysregulated relating to immune function and cancer surveillance and cancer suppression. And so everything was going haywire molecularly, accompanied by this integration event, accompanied by a stage 4 cancer, a very rare cancer in this age group. So this is very damning, and it's very worrisome, and it should demand the immediate withdrawal of these mRNA products.
Wow. Wow. Well, all right. That's all that we need to know for the next couple of weeks, but no, we're going to keep going. That was a mouthful. So break that down for us, just in case. Give me the 30-second overview of everything you just said. What's the risk here? I mean, I get it, but just in case anybody missed it.
Yes. So the mRNA injections are contaminated with DNA from the manufacturing process. We documented this DNA or portions of it can integrate into human chromosomes, into human DNA, creating chimeric DNA or hybrids. Basically, you could call it a non-human hybrid now. You have Pfizer, Moderna integrated into human code. The consequences of this appear to be cancers, highly aggressive, highly unusual cancers, because there's now extraordinarily genetic dysfunction ongoing in the body from these integration events. So basically, that the risk is cancer, but the risk is also does become immune dysfunction. So you'll have higher risk of other infections. The risk becomes other diseases that we may be unaware of, such as these long white fibrous clots that are now being identified in corpses that could be related to this integration activity. So many things, and as well as transgenerational risks of, so if you have these integration events, this can possibly transfer to offspring, and that could be exactly why we're now seeing excess infant mortality even in 2025 to whose mothers were vaccinated but the children were not.
Wow. So let me break it down. Let me see if I got this correct. Because what I'm about to say, well, we'll get to that. So cancer, autoimmune, what some people are calling VAIDS, vaccine induced. You've got, you said it can pass along even generationally. In other words, it doesn't. We've talked in the past about how obviously if somebody's pregnant when they get vaxxed, but you're saying that now there's evidence of it affecting, staying with you and affecting future babies, like after, even if you weren't pregnant. So we got that. And there was one other big one. Of course, just the integration with DNA. All four of those things, we were told, we were scolded, we were ridiculed, we were laughed at, and told, "Oh, that's misinformation, that's disinformation, that's debunked. Follow the science. None of that is true." And you're telling me that basically it all is coming out as true. Have you gotten any reports from legacy media or anyone like that? Any politicians that are lining up to apologize to us for calling us names back in 2021, 22, 23?
No, no, we have not gotten any such messages because unfortunately they are complicit in this debacle, and it appears they won't want to deal with it. Because you're right, all the pharmaceutical companies on Pfizer's website right now, they say these vaccines cannot alter or do anything to your DNA. The CDC's website says that currently as well. Those claims are completely false and based on zero supporting evidence. In fact, on Pfizer's own website, their reference to when they say it can't touch DNA is a completely irrelevant paper on SARS-CoV-2 evolution. It makes no sense. So Pfizer's just lying out of their teeth, and the CDC is just making stuff up as well. So now that narrative of lying and saying this does not affect your genome is wrong. It is wrong. In some individuals, it now appears that yes, this can alter human DNA, particularly since they are contaminated with DNA plasmids.
Wow. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Is anybody being held accountable? I mean, has there been anything? I know, look, I'm a big fan of RFK Jr. I'm a big fan of the Maha movement. I'm a big fan of Dr. Peter McCullough. I'm a big fan of all these freedom fighters, all the people out there, such as yourself and the people that are fighting. But as far as I know, we haven't seen any accountability. We haven't seen any even leaning towards accountability. But then again, I'm not in the industry. You are. Maybe you can correct me and give us some hope. Is there a chance that we're going to see some arrests or major fines or anything at some point? Somebody getting shut down? I don't know.
We have the evidence that would warrant real criminal investigations against many of these individuals that were instrumental in this. Much, much, much. So much evidence now at this point. It is undeniable. And so for accountability, there are not too many signals right now that it will be served in a short period of time from now. But there is what's a law firm. They're called the Vyers Law Group, and they actually filed criminal referral requests to about 7 states, accusing Anthony Fauci and other top public health officials during the COVID era of many different crimes, including homicide, abuse, terrorism, fraud, all sorts of things. And they had evidence from about over 200 victims who suffered from ill-advised hospital protocols due to suppression of effective treatments and pushing dangerous and deadly products. So there are activities ongoing to try and finally get accountability for the crimes that have been committed. But yeah, we're not seeing any real action at this point in time. But I would expect eventually, due to the abundance of evidence, that eventually there will be a form of accountability. And what would probably be needed is military style tribunals at this point in time, because it's too far entrenched and the damages have been so absurd. There has to be some form of accountability, because if we have to remember, these mRNA shots were given to literally about 70 to 80% of Americans, about 88%, 90% of Europeans. And now we're finding out it can alter your DNA. This is horrible. This has to be addressed now before we run ourselves off to a cliff, an irreversible decline in our health. And that's now what we are seeing in the epidemiological data. So things need to change, and they need to change fast.
Can RFK Jr. change them? Is this something that has to come from the president? Is it something that has to come from through the courts, through the states? What's the pathway to see if we can't get these changes made?
Well, at the McCullough Foundation, we're collaborating with a group of individuals to try and get bills filed in about 15 states to ban these injections. So we're trying to do this not only at the state level but the local level as well. Actually, yesterday I testified at a city council. It's 2 counties in Washington State. They had a council meeting about a resolution to stop recommending the mRNA shots, and so I gave them all of the latest studies, all the latest harms, as well as many other scientists such as Dr. Ryan Cole, Dr. James Thorpe. They were all there. We were all giving them evidence. So this is ongoing, right? We are actively giving local and state governments critical information regarding these harms in hopes of getting more legislative initiatives to ban these. So that's what we're doing. At the federal level, it appears there are individuals within high levels there at HHS that would like to see an end to this campaign that I am directly aware of. So, that they haven't, we can't give up hope completely. They do want to see an end to this. And all these studies are being, directly, they are seeing these studies we're putting out, right? So they are getting these materials. So, sooner or later, it's going to end. It's going to end. We're going to keep pumping out the investigations. We're going to keep reporting on the new studies that come out. And there will be nowhere to hide for Big Pharma and the vaccine cartel anymore. There will be nowhere to hide. There's too many risks. There's no benefits.
Praise God for that. So, yeah, my family, the entirety of my family, at least my immediate family, none of us were vaxxed. None of us got COVID. But I know that, as you said, 70 to 80% here. Europe even higher. Is there anything that people can do? Because we're not just talking about, it went from mild side effects, on day one, which was not, I don't want to say funny, but it was it was ironic that the first nurse, if you recall, the nurse that nobody knows where she is now, who fell, fainted, passed out, and then she disappeared. Probably just hiding from the spotlight, but you never know. Maybe something worse. Anyway, it started out with you might have some mild side effects, a rash, or you might feel woozy for a bit, and then it converted to there might be a little bit of sustained side effects, and then there was the whole long COVID, which a lot of people thought was maybe long vaccid. If you want, I think I just made up a word. Um,
No,
Call it
long
whatever you
long
will.
vaccine. That's a real syndrome.
Oh yeah. No. I said vaccid. I was
Oh,
combining the word. It's my word. You can't use that. You got to stick with long vaccine. I'm going to say long vaccid, um, just because it's my show. So, so, but now, we went from minor side effects to DNA damage, genomic damage. What can people do? Is there, and I'm not asking you necessarily for a cure or anything, but I mean, have you heard of any treatments? Is there anything that somebody who's been vaxxed, whether they're having symptoms or not, is there anything that they can do? Do they just need to stop eating ultra processed foods? Should they be taking ivermectin, whatever, whatever? What? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
yes, yes. There are many ways to improve outcomes, but there's currently no technology that we are aware of that can reverse a genomic integration event, unfortunately. So if you receive batches with high levels of DNA plasmids, and you're suffering from highly aggressive turbo cancer, there are methods. In fact, Neo7 Bioscience, who again who headed the study to identify this genomic integration event, does have some personalized peptide therapeutics that target these chaotic gene expressions in a best attempt to remedy this molecular chaos, seeing successful improvements in individuals clinically. So they are seeing that there again, Neo7 Bioscience. But yeah, we have no technology to completely reverse this. But yeah, to improve outcomes, it's key, like you mentioned, don't eat hyper processed foods, eat a wholesome food, whole food diet, nothing synthetic, no Doritos with, red 40 and these horrible synthetic food dyes linked to cancers and linked to more DNA damage, right? You don't want any of that. You want to stick to a clean, natural diet. That is certain that will reduce your risks of negative outcomes. And then we have activity, right? Movement. A recent study found that 7,000 steps a day is adequate to decrease risk of all-cause mortality, decrease risk of cancer death, of diabetes, of dementia, of heart disease, right? So it decreases the risk of all these negative outcomes. So you want movement, and you have critical things such as getting outside for sunlight. You need sunlight exposure. If you're not getting any, if you have inadequate vitamin D levels, there's two studies now that show you are much worse off with vaccine injury. So one of them looked at vaccine-induced myocarditis, and those who brought their vitamin D levels up to adequate suffered much less hospitalization rates. They had much better symptom profiles and less deaths. So they fared much better. And then there was a long vaccine study. They looked at over 50 people with long vaccine, post vaccination chronic fatigue syndrome. And when they raised those levels, nearly all of the participants almost resolved this long vaccination or long vaccine syndrome um, quite significantly. So you want to get that vitamin D through sunlight because there's thousands of other benefits, such as circadian rhythm regulation, such as mitochondrial functioning, such as many other things related to gene expression. So you want that sunlight, and that's the best way to do it. So you have all these things, and then you have the spike protein that's still in the body years after injection, which is another route of harm. In fact, one of the most one of the most impactful routes of harm, I would say, is this synthetic spike protein that's being produced from the mRNA genetic material. There are targeted interventions, McCullough protocol-based spike detoxification, nattokinase, bromelain, and curcumin have shown ability to directly degrade the spike protein, as well as in case reports improve and ameliorate vaccine injury, thrombotic syndromes, these blood clotting disorders. It kind of helps bust these clots open and dissolve the spike protein within them. So that shows lots of promise. And so yeah, there's a lot of things people can do, but what we really have to find now is how do we reverse the DNA damage incurred?
We don't know how yet. Maybe you guys will figure it out with all your studies. That sounds like a worthy cause. I have one final, just a quick question, just a general, what's coming up, what else, maybe little things we've missed. But before you answer that, please remind the audience where to find you and all that good stuff, all your websites and your X handle and all that good stuff.
Yes, you can follow me on X. It's at NIC Hulscher, NICHULSCHER. And you can also follow me on thefocalpoints.com. That is our Substack publication where we post all the breaking latest studies in detail. We give an in-depth breakdown, and that's really where you want to go to get the latest breaking vaccine-related and public health news. So those two things, my X account and thefocalpoints.com.
Beautiful. So final question, what like I said, what do we have coming up between now and next week? Do you see anything coming down the road, or is there any stories that maybe aren't getting as much of attention as they should, that have already happened? What's going on just generally in the world of, we'll call it, fixing America, fixing America's health now?
Yes. Well, actually, today it was reported that Paul Thorsen, a Danish vaccine autism researcher, he was actually an author on the New England Journal of Medicine study in 2022 that claimed there was no link between MMR vaccines and autism, which was fatally flawed, by the way. I mean, this study's been dismantled. They use all sorts of statistical tricks, but this author on that study has been a most wanted fugitive for over a decade for stealing about $1 million in CDC research funds. And so he was finally arrested in Germany. And so what this shows us, though, is the researchers involved in trying to debunk a link between vaccines and autism were involved in criminal activities and fraudulent scientific practices, right? So that's what these lies are built upon, right? Literal criminals writing these papers. So that's a very big development, and it kind of just shows the CDC, right? I mean, they do need a complete restructuring at this point in time, right? So the firing of all these people, that needs to happen. They need to bring fresh people in there to really improve the health of America at this point. And so, yeah, that's one of those developments. But yeah, hopefully within the next few weeks here, we should be. I hope we'll have it completed by then. Our comprehensive report on the possible links between vaccinations and autism, as well as all the other risk factors of autism. We literally looked at everything, and it will all be in this report, probably the most comprehensive to date. And so that will really answer the question that many people want to know. And yeah, so stay tuned for that. And stay tuned for a bunch of other studies we're currently working on regarding to the mRNA injections. Many things are being uncovered. And we won't stop. We will not stop until finally the truth is fully out there and our government starts taking action. We can't sit idly by and do nothing at this point in time. People are still getting harmed. They're still getting disabled. And this has to stop.
That it does. And God bless you for that, my friend. Nicholas Hulscher, MPH. It is a pleasure having you on. I can't wait till next Wednesday. Hopefully, you're not going to tell us something awful like you did today. Hopefully, maybe we'll get a study that says, hey, we figured out how to reverse them destroying your DNA and your turbo cancer and everything else. But we'll see. We'll see.
We're
I know you're
working
fighting a
on
good
that.
fight.
We're
Yep.
working on that. We're working on ways to remedy this.
Well, we will pray for you. Thank you, my friends. See you next week.
Thanks for having me.